This call is being recorded.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Cooking Without Looking TV show podcast. I'm Renee Rentmeester. I'm the creator and executive producer of the show. And today we've got someone very special. I just did his podcast. He's doing my podcast. His name is Curtis Jackson. Curtis, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Renee. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. You came to me by way of someone else, someone who did our podcast and told me about you. And they told me that you were a fantastic cook and that you should be on here. And I said, wonderful, let's have him. So tell us a little bit about your self. Tell us about your journey as a person who was blind.
Yes, that person would be Kevin Burton. But as for me, I've been blind since birth due to congenital glaucoma. I had 4 cornea transplants. They all rejected. So, growing up, I went through public school. I'm originally from Louisiana. Graduated from DeRidder High School in 1997. Went to the Louisiana Center for the Blind in Ruston, Louisiana for some NFB training for 9 months. Then I went to Louisiana Tech for a little while. I was studying sociology. I got into the telemarketing field, the work field for a while when I moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And then in 2004, I moved to Wichita, Kansas, began working for a company called Envision, which is a company that employs the blind, and they manufacture products for the government. We have several departments. We have several base stores all around the country, base supply centers. So I worked on the manufacturing floor for 5 years. And then in 2009, I got promoted to assistive technology specialist. For those who don't know what that is, that's somebody who teaches technology to the blind or the disabled. I did that for 10 years. And then I moved up to Junction City, Kansas. Now I'm working at the base supply center as a cashier stocker for Envision. The retail side is called Envision Express. So I'm working for Envision Express, and I've been doing this for the last 2 years. I graduated from the Academy of Radio and TV Broadcasting back last July with academic excellence. I'm doing internet radio for 2 stations, Blind Cafe Radio and G-Spin Radio. And 6 months ago, I started my podcast, Living the Dream with Curveball. And on that show, I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire, and which is why I had Renee on, because when I heard about her show, I knew it was definitely going to be an inspiration to people. And I was glad to have her on the show and glad to be on her show today.
Well, thank you so much, Curtis. That's really kind because I didn't know exactly what your podcast was about, but when Kevin told me about it, I'm like, of course, of course. Now, tell me what kind of products you have at the Envision. What are some? Is it like assistive technology?
Well, we have things like trash bags, your trash bags that you would see in the grocery store. We have the grocery bags. We call them T-shirt bags. We sell good quality paper towels. We sell Ziploc bags. We also have a small assembly line that does Visa belts for the military. We have aqua pads that people can use for floods. You know, instead of sandbags, they can use the aqua pads. And we have a store that people can come in and buy blindness products. As far as the assistive technology part, they can buy clocks and watches and stuff like that. And at our base supply centers, we sell, at least at our store, we sell janitorial and office products. So the soldiers can come in, they can buy ranks for their uniforms, they can buy boots, they can get office supplies, ink, pen, binders, paper, stuff like that, and cleaning supplies. And we also sell to their chow halls, so they can come in and get their plates and cups and everything. And that's the kind of stuff that we provide for the base here at Fort Riley.
Now, does everyone that worked there have some sort of a disability or impairment?
I'm the only one that has a disability. What happens with the NIB, the National Industries for the Blind, is with Envision, I believe it's 75%. They have to have 75% of employees that are blind or visually impaired, and at each one of our base supply centers, they're required to have at least one blind person that works there. So I am the only blind person that works there.
Did you hear that, everyone? This is wonderful because so many people, there's like 88% of people who are blind can't find a job, and this is quite an interesting rule that I hadn't been aware of.
Yeah, so if anybody's looking for a job, you can go to envisionus.com and apply, and they have several positions open. We have our corporate office in Wichita. We have 16 base stores around the country, and we just acquired a manufacturing facility in Dallas. So they also have jobs through Envision Dallas.
The website is again
www.envisionus.com. That's ENVISIONUS.com. Not only does Envision employ blind and visually impaired, they also cater to veterans. At our store right now, we have 2 retired military veterans, Army veterans, that work there. So they also cater to veterans. And if you are near the Wichita area, if you need low vision services, you can also find out about that, and you can get some low vision services as well.
Curtis, you said that you've been blind since birth. What was your experience of growing up blind? What was that like?
My experience was growing up as a blind person. I was the only blind person that a lot of people knew. There was another blind person in town, but I believe he was a lot older. A lot of people like to pick on me a lot and make jokes and stuff, and I don't think people had the education because I didn't really know about the NFB and the training centers and stuff until I got older. So didn't really have the education. The technology was just coming along. But I survived. I had a teacher of the visually impaired named Karen Williams she learned how to read Braille with her eyes, and she could transcribe my work for my teachers. I had to carry around a Braille writer, which was clunky and noisy, and I was the only blind person in school, so at times it was difficult, but my stepbrothers and stepsisters never let me make any excuses. They had me playing football, basketball. I learned how to ride a bike. I taught people how to ride a bike. So I used to do a lot of the normal things with the neighborhood kids that regular people with sight would do. I didn't really start using a cane till I think maybe 4th or 5th grade, and they trained me the best they could, but I didn't have the real good training that the NFB gave me when I went there. But I mean, I made it. I graduated, and the best thing that ever happened to me is going to that training center for 9 months. Not only, for those who don't know what this training center does, they teach you life skills, they teach you cane travel, they teach you Braille, they teach you cooking. Speaking of cooking, I've cooked a meal for 40 and a meal for 4. That was our graduation project.
Wow, wow.
We also had woodworking class where I made a checkerboard. They took us to things like Mardi Gras, horseback riding, target shooting, whitewater rafting, just to show us that even though we're blind, we still could do these type of things. So
wait a minute, Curtis. Wait a minute. Back up. Target shooting. How did they teach you the target shooting?
What they did is they did a gun safety class first, and then they would kind of tell us where to aim and say, okay, aim here. Or if it was a falling target, they would kind of tell us when to shoot, and then we would shoot it and try to see if we hit it, and they would let us know where we hit it at, if we hit it at all.
Wow. And you mentioned the jokes before. How do you feel like when you hear like I think every group in the world, they've been found they don't like jokes told about them. What do you feel like when you hear blind jokes? People still tell blind jokes.
It doesn't bother me now because I went through it so much. I mean, I could go into a store with somebody that's sighted, and the person will act like I'm not even there and just talk to the person. What's his social security number? What does he want? How many does he want? You
Yep.
know, that
Yep.
gets on my nerves more than anything else. Or when somebody sees that I'm blind and it automatically means that I'm deaf, I'm retarded, I'm all these other things, and it's like, no, I can still hear. The blind jokes so much, they don't really bother me because I went through them through school, and I'm not so much worried about that. My concern is to get in front of as many people as possible to educate them and show them that, hey, this person might be blind, but if they have the right skills, they can do what they need to do because these people that you're getting in front of could be the next hiring manager, could be the next leader, and it's going to make a big difference if they know that you can do things because they will give you a chance based on your skills instead of not giving you a chance based on your disability.
You're right. I when we've often taken people. This was pre-pandemic. Taking people grocery shopping who were blind, and people would the person next to me who was blind would say, "Okay, I'd like a pound of apples," and the person in the apple place would look at me and say, "Well, what kind of apples does she want?" And I would go, look, I'd look at that person and go, "Okay, well, you can ask her. She's blind. She's not deaf."
Yep, they do it all the time.
It's a weird psychology, isn't it? I like to learn about the psychology of people and why we do things that we do, and I would just sort of shake my head, going, "Oh, here's another person who just did that."
Yep, they. I don't know why. I don't know. I think it's just this stigma that I guess people are used to seeing people like Mr. Magoo or somebody in the movies who goes to pet his dog, but he ends up grabbing the hot dogs out of the refrigerator thinking it's his dog because he don't know because he's blind. Just this misconception that, oh, you're blind, you don't know anything, you're not able to do anything, and people that are blind even face that from their own families. No matter how much success you have in life, you could still have a family member that will say, you can't see, you're blind. You don't need to be doing that. You have no business doing that. You can't see. Yeah, I'm reminded of that every time I wake up in the morning and my eyes don't open. So, yes, I know I can't see.
I
You
know
know?
that must be aggravating. Do you have any good stories or interesting stories because of your blindness?
Well, let's see. I mean, I've I've owned my own home, and I have two kids, Daniel and Kiara,
Oh, how
and
old are they?
Kiara will be 5 this Wednesday, which will be March 24th, and Daniel is 8. He'll be 9 in October. He has
Oh,
autism, and I basically, when both of them were born, I basically had to. Their mom had C-section, so she was unable to, move around for a few days to take care of the kids. So I had to take care of them and navigate everything and deal with the hospital staff and go back and forth and get from the entrance up to her room. And so that was pretty interesting, learning how to change diapers, give baths, do all these things that you have to do as a parent when they're little.
sure. Oh my gosh. And did you have any pushback from the hospital staff?
I didn't at that particular hospital. They were pretty good, but I have heard of horror stories of people having those having those issues, but I didn't have any. The hospital staff was very helpful. The security was very helpful of escorting me up because it was a huge hospital. Everybody was pretty helpful, thankfully.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. And happy birthday to your little girl for this Wednesday.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Hey, so what other things like what would you tell people who are maybe going blind because you haven't had sight, and some people who've lost their sight, or are losing their sight, some of them may feel dejected or depressed. What would you tell them?
The first thing I would tell them is do whatever you can to get the help you need to be able to accept it, because if you don't accept your blindness and you're still trying to do things that you used to do the same way, it might not work and it might be depressing. I have several friends that weren't born blind that lost their sight maybe in their 20s, and they have a hard time accepting it. So I would say do whatever you need to do, whether it's faith or counseling or anything that you need to do to get help to accept it, that this is the way it's going to be. That's the first step. And then the second step is get some good training from the NFB. Wherever you are, try to get into that training center as quick as you're ready and as quick as you can, so you can get that training and learn those blindness skills, so then you can start moving on with your life. And the third thing I would say is whatever dreams you had when you were sighted, keep those dreams and do whatever you can to try to fulfill those dreams when you're blind. Don't let anybody tell you what you cannot do. Don't let anybody tell you what dreams you cannot achieve. You might have to do them a little different. It might take a little longer, but whatever you do, don't give up. If you believe, you can achieve.
Those are good words for all of us, really. We don't have to be going blind. A lot of times sighted people, I had someone the other day tell me they happened to be had been sighted and then they went blind, and she said that she accomplished more when she was blind than she did when she was sighted, because I guess you just take it for granted when you're sighted.
Yeah, people probably take it for granted that they can open their eyes up every morning and see what their kids look like, and they can jump in their car and go places. They don't have to depend on nobody or spend extra money on Ubers and stuff like that. I'm sure it's stuff that's taken for granted, and not only just sighted stuff, but in life in general. I mean, we take for granted those of us who can walk, those of us who can hear, those of us who can talk. We we don't take the time out to count our blessings as we should, and realize that it all can be taken away in just a snap of a finger, especially as people get older and then they get these diseases like macular degeneration, and they might have diabetes and stuff like that.
Well, you mentioned something interesting, and I was going to ask you. Uh, so, how do you how do you find out how what your children look like? Do you have any special ways of doing that?
I could just get a description from somebody, but that's really the only way that I would actually know that, because I am totally blind.
I was thinking, I had one lady who she was in a truck accident and she went totally blind, and she had her children after that accident. And she told me that she would feel their faces and figure out. But yeah, I know if that's something. It's it's something that it gets me all the time when I hear about that, because that's something that's very special. What our children look like or how they are, and do you ever like just feel their faces or their hair or?
I can feel their hair to see what kind of texture of hair they have, but feeling people's faces has never done anything to me. I know a
Hmm.
lot of people say it does, but it's never done anything for me.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, and then again, you were born blind, so it's not like you had sight at one time and you can just sort of fill in the blanks either. I get you. So as promised, tell us one of your recipes.
Well, since I'm from Louisiana, one of the things I like to do is I like to smoke a lot of meat, and I also like Cajun food. So my recipe is crawfish etouffee, and what you would need to purchase to make this meal is very simple and easy. You go to a store that has crawfish tails. You can get the frozen one, and you get a couple of packs of crawfish tails, and you get a couple of things of cream of mushroom soup. Depends on how many crawfish tails you have. If you have a couple of packs, you can get away with one. And then you get a stick of butter and you get you some rice. So what I would do is you put the cream of mushroom soup in a pot with the stick of butter. Let that stick of butter melt. Let that cream of mushroom soup get going. You can put you some onions and bell peppers in it, some seasonings, basically whatever you want. So once you get all this going, you take your crawfish tails, you put it in with the cream of mushroom soup, the butter, and anything else you got in the pot. You get that going. Then you start your rice. If you have a rice cooker, you can do it that way, or if you do it on the stove. Once you get your rice cooked, what I do is I combine it all together, and I kind of let it simmer for a few minutes to let it blend in and let the juices blend in. And in about 30 minutes or so, you got you some crawfish etouffee. And you can also use shrimp if you don't want to use crawfish, so it'd be called shrimp etouffee.
Ah, and do we know what etouffee means?
I don't off the top of my head, but we
That's
could
okay,
definitely
neither
Google it.
do I. That's right, the god of Google. I know. That's where I learn most of my things these days, just like Googling them. But that really sounds amazing. Um, that sounds wonderful, and you're right. It just sounds awfully easy. What other things do you like to prepare?
When I can use my smoker, I like to smoke a lot of meat on the weekends. I stayed doing that. I would smoke things like burgers, brats, boudin, which is another Cajun dish. I would smoke brisket, anything that could be smoked, I would smoke it. I've even smoked lobster and shrimp. So I love to
Oh,
smoke meat. I just can't do it right now because in the apartment I'm in, the electrical system won't. That smoker pulls a lot of power and it'll shut off the breaker whenever I try to plug it in. So I either gonna have to get one that's not electric so I can smoke.
now the smoked shrimp sound interesting because how long do you can't really smoke the shrimp that long, can you?
No, you have to do it about 20 minutes. It's the same way with fish. If you smoke, you get the thicker fish, you can smoke it a little longer. But if you smoke fish too long, it will become tough. So you can only do it for about 20 or 30 minutes. And I'll tell you an interesting one that I do that I learned from a friend that I used to work with.
Sure.
Smoked eggs. You boil the eggs, you
Ooh.
peel them, and then you smoke them for about 15 or 20 minutes, and they are delicious.
Oh, that sounds good because your basic hard boiled egg tastes sort of boring, really, honestly. But that sounds very good. I've never heard of that.
Yep, you smoke the egg and then you put a little salt on it, and there you go. I love having salt on my boiled eggs, which is why I don't eat them too much because salt is not that good for me.
Yeah, but the a smoked egg. So again, you boil the egg and then when do you put in the smoker after it's boiled?
Yeah, after you boil it and peel it, and then you
Ah,
drop it on the smoker for about 15 or 20 minutes, and it'll get that good, nice smoke taste to it.
oh wow! I've got to try that. That just sounds amazing. I mean, like a boiled egg sounds so simple, but with smoke, it just sounds really great. So do you stay more for the Cajun food? Do you cook more that way, or do you have anything outside of that too that you like to cook?
Oh, I cook a lot of stuff. I cook chicken, shrimp, and sausage spaghetti. I mean,
Ooh.
I do a lot of stuff. Chicken spaghetti. I sign on to these recipe groups, and they send out emails of recipes. And if I like something, I will try it.
Oh, that's great. What recipe groups are you in?
I'm in what is it, BettyCrocker.com, and there's a couple more. I can't remember off top, but I'm definitely going to be joining your recipe group now that I know about it.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Every day we put out special recipes. All the recipes are from people who are blind or visually impaired. So you know what, Curtis? If you send me your recipe for the crawfish in writing, I'll make it recipe of the day. All of them that we show are kitchen tested and submitted by people who are blind or visually impaired. And then we have our kitchen hacks. What's your special kitchen trick? Do you have any good kitchen hacks, kitchen tricks that you use?
Not offhand. I usually keep it as simple as possible. Nothing too fancy. No tricks that I can necessarily think of, except I use an induction grill to do like hamburgers, steaks, my grilling. I guess that might be a kitchen hack.
Wow. So I've never heard of an induction grill. I mean, of the grill type. How does
What it
that work?
is it heats through induction, so you have less likely a chance of burning yourself. I have an induction cooker that I can put the induction pots on, anything induction. And so what I did for my cooker is I bought an induction grill that goes over the little burner thing. You plug the burner in. It has different heat settings. I actually have two of the burners. I have an induction grill, and I also have one of those things that you can use to do grilled cheese. It's induction as well. And so I can just put my induction pot on it, and I can cook stuff, and you're less likely to get burned versus a regular stove or gas stove.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's really interesting. Well, Curtis, you had me on your Living the Dream by Curveball podcast. Tell us how people can reach out to you.
You can go to www.djcurveball.com. The site is under construction, but it still has some stuff on it. I'm getting in the process of getting a nice little neat design on it. Hopefully have that done in the next couple of weeks. But if you go there, you can see transcripts of my podcast. You can click on a link and it'll take you to my catalog of episodes, and it'll show you some of my past radio shows and the radio stations that I'm on. And if you just want to Google Living the Dream with Curveball, it'll pop up and you can check out the podcast that way.
That sounds great. And do you have any parting thoughts for our audience?
Well, I just want to let people know, as I said before, if you have any dreams that you want to achieve, whether sighted or blind, doesn't matter. Do whatever you can to get those dreams achieved. Hang around people that will support you and that are going in the same direction that you want to go. Never give up, and always remember, if you believe, you can achieve.
Thank you so much, Curtis Jackson, for being with us today. Again, this was Renee Rentmeester, the Cooking Without Looking TV show podcast, and we're changing the way we see blindness. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Bye-bye.